I lived with chronic migraines every day for years, and no one could tell me why until I discovered something that completely changed how I understood healing. Today, I share my story of my struggles through chronic cluster migraines and how I had to eventually pay attention and try figure out a way to get myself out of it. I had been seeking out medical attention for years with no answers. No specialist, no doctor, no one could give me an answer about why this was happening or how they could help me. So I took it upon myself to figure out a way to deal with my pain and manage my pain so that I could have a more stable life and, live pain-free. That's the ultimate goal, right? So today I'm going to be interviewing myself for purposes of gaining insight into what really happened and how it can relate in other people's lives and let people know that they're not alone in this. I certainly felt that way when I was going through it, but right now I feel like I can share what I've discovered in a way that could hopefully help other people. So, in this interview, I am interviewing myself in regards to migraines. So, what migraine patterns did I start noticing before or during a migraine that no one talked about? One of the biggest things that I noticed that no one really ever said anything about when it came to migraines is how my eye felt like it wasn't even a part of my body. It felt like it wasn't there, and it felt hot at the same time, if that makes any sense. So I did notice that I would lose my vision in my right eye, and that was a huge indicator that I was already in the middle of a migraine. I also had a lot of pain with it, and the whole right side of my body was just in pain and lost sensation. It was just the weirdest, most strange feeling I've ever experienced. And so, before having a migraine attack, if I was awake, that was my biggest indicator was that heat and that feeling of my eye wasn't attached to my face, attached to my body. It just felt like it was nothing was there. But then when I had the vision loss, and sometimes it would last a long time, and it was very disturbing. And, that's really unnerving for someone, especially when you're at work or you're, driving or you're at your kid's, school concert or sporting event or something like that. It's very unnerving. Even though no one around me knew what was going on, I knew what was happening, and I didn't know how to fix it. And it didn't feel right. I didn't feel right at all. I just wanted to hide. I just wanted to go away and hide. So after a migraine, no one really ever told me how exhausted you're going to be. So I had chronic cluster migraines every day for years. So I was exhausted 24/7. And it was really, really frustrating because I couldn't get any answers. I really, really struggled for the medical system to help me. And, even though I'm pain free today, because I found facial reflexology to work, I was able to work on myself doing facial reflexology techniques that I had learned and really played around with and developed certain systems where I could get myself out of pain at least. But I still had the sensations. So I still knew I was having migraines because I'd have that vision loss and I'd have that sensation of heat around my eye and things like that. But it took a long time for it to heal. And, no one really talks about that either, how long it takes to heal from something like that when you finally find something that works. So, my next question is, how did stress or sensory overload show up in my migraine experience? This is an excellent question to ask yourself when you're going through any type of pain. For me, the stress of everything was pretty heavy for me. And I think that my symptoms, they didn't start as migraines. They started as other things that I was ignoring because I was busy. I was a single mom. I had a full-time job plus a part-time business. So I was just doing life. You just do what you do, right? And you just keep on pushing through. And I was one of those people that pushed through and ignored my body, the signals my body was sending. So stress played a huge part, and having that busy lifestyle did not favor me at all because I did not take the time to rest that I needed. And now I know that that is an important part of a daily routine is taking that time for self-care and rest. As before, I just didn't. I had kids, I had a job, I had a business, I had life to take care of. So I chose to put those as priority over myself. If I was to do it over again, I have definitely learned that you have to make yourself a priority. Even if it's like 15 minutes a day, it makes a huge difference. So when you are starting to feel pain sensors and you're already under a lot of stress, that pain is going to be heightened. And then when you ignore your body, that is going to continue to go deeper and stronger until your body really gets your attention. So paying attention to our bodies when it's like is so important because we can catch things before they come really big problems. Okay. And so I ignored my body for so long that I ended up with chronic cluster migraines every day. And that was my body saying, we need to shut down. We really need to rest. You need to take a break. And so eventually I ended up having to take a very long break, which was unfortunate. But in the grand scheme of things, it taught me a lot. So my next question is, when did this first show up in my life and how did it affect me day to day? Well, I kind of just explained some of that, where you know, day to day, I ignored the pain signals at first until the pain signals got too loud that I couldn't ignore them, right? So maybe it started out as, a few migraines a month when it really tried to get my attention and I ignored that. So eventually it was every day, but then I was ignoring that. I was just dealing with the symptoms, doing the best I could while keeping up with life and all the things. And then it became chronic, where it was chronic cluster migraines, so multiple migraines throughout the day. And can you imagine? I was working in a dental office, I was a dental assistant, and the overhead lights, like all the lights in the building, and all the sounds, the suctions, the drills, all the smells, all of those things were triggers for me when I was having a migraine. And I was having these migraines piggybacking off each other all day long. It was the most excruciating time of my life. But, I did manage to get through it and I did eventually pay attention. So, that it was definitely an experience. But so that's definitely how it affected me every day. And when I would go home and I had to take care of my kids, feed them, you know, take them to sporting events or their activities or whatever, I just had to push through that as well, right? So when I was alone, sometimes I would just collapse on the floor and, just to try to get some relief, and just a break. That was my break is just absolutely collapsing on the floor. And sometimes I would just break down, of course, because your body is in hyper overdrive on, in pain. You sometimes you just gotta let the tears flow and, pick yourself back up and keep on going. But this was at that point where it was getting to desperation, where medications or nothing would help. So, my sleep was affected, my relationships were affected, everything was being affected, right? And it went on for years. So it was very disheartening. It was very frustrating for me. But I kept on going and to find answers, and eventually I did. And I'm so happy that I did not give up on myself. And I'm happy that I stepped outside the norm of the traditional medical system in order to find a natural way to help my body self-correct and deal with this pain that I was struggling with. So my next question is, what did this take from me, physically, emotionally, or mentally, that people couldn't see? Well, I just described one instance where uh, it really affected me emotionally, where I'm laying on the floor crying at the end of a long day because I didn't know what else to do, right? And I just didn't know how to deal with the pain. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep well. I knew that I was already exhausted. So it definitely took a toll emotionally and, made me feel really not safe, I guess. That's a good way to put it. So, and, mentally, it just really was messing with me is like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why can't this go away? Why is nothing working? Right? Those were all the questions I was asking. So once I stopped asking the questions and taking action, that's when things started to shift a little bit. Physically, I did still, I was still very active. I ran, I exercised, I did all the things. And it was just one of those things that I knew I needed to do. I needed to keep my circulation going in order to try to help with the migraines and things like that. I didn't know what to do, but I just knew that I needed some type of physical activity to keep the circulation going. Even when I didn't feel like doing it, I just did it, right? So, yoga, running, walking, all of those things were all in the mix when I was going through this as well, because I knew I needed to try keep my body healthy and strong as best as I could until I could find a solution. So, what was I told about this, and how did that land in my body? So, when I was going through the medical system, what I was told was it's stress, it's hormones, you know, maybe you're just overwhelmed. Try this medication, try that medication. Let's do this test, let's try that test. Let's send you to this specialist. Oh, that medication's not working. Let's try this, see what happens. So eventually I got tired of that and I'm like, no, I got to figure something out, right? So it didn't really, you know, fare well with me being shuffled through the medical system like that. But I did it because that's what we were programmed to do. So the last thing I tried was a natural health modality in order to help myself, save myself, right? So I had tried massage and acupuncture and all those things before, but in order to treat something efficiently, you also need to try figure out what the source of where this is coming from. So it became really tricky because nothing seemed to be working because we didn't know what was driving the bus on these symptoms, right? And in the end, it was definitely years and years of stress and years of my body sending me pain signals to pay attention and take care of myself better. And so, yeah, eventually we had to back up the truck all the way back and start from the beginning in order to treat it correctly. Um, so what shifted when I stopped fighting my body and started listening to it? That's a great question because when you stop fighting what's happening, that's when your body starts responding in a favorable fashion. So instead of giving it medications, instead of bouncing around from doctor to doctor, treatment to treatment to try figure things out or try to mask the pain and the symptoms, um, just surrendering to the thought that there are other ways to deal with this, right? Other ways to gain relief, other ways to encourage long-term recovery instead of, suppressing it. So that's what I really learned is when I stopped trying to fight so hard against what was happening in my body and I started listening to my body. And when I started using facial reflexology techniques on myself, and things started to shift and move, even though at the beginning they were so minute that, I thought, well, is this going to be helpful or not? But it just took those little baby steps and that time and effort in order to figure out how to treat that pain in order for me to make that shift and my body to make that shift to start self-correcting the things that needed to be addressed in order to have long-term sustainable pain relief. And what supported my nervous system and helped create remembering safety again? That's a great question because supporting the nervous system is so important when we're dealing with pain. So, when we're in pain, the nervous system goes into overdrive. And when the nervous system is heightened, we have more pain. So it's this little circle that goes round and round and round. And you have to be able to calm down the nervous system in order to calm down the pain and create that sense of safety. Get yourself out of that fight or flight mode, right? And so we need to be able to address that and get it into a place of calm in order to start relieving that pain and having that communication a little more subdued so that healing can begin. So, self-correcting the heightened awareness in the nervous system in order to reduce pain sensors. If I could change one belief people have about this condition, what would it be? That it is hormonal or just stress. I've heard that so many times over the years. That's probably the biggest thing for me is that's actually a sore spot for me because I knew something was wrong and I didn't know how to fix it and no one could tell me how to fix it. They just were like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this. Stop guessing and, really look at things. Even looking back to childhood, emotional trauma can play a part. Concussions from sports injuries could play a part. Anything like that. Even having just a bad day and ruminating on it can be a repressed pain sensor, things like that. So that's the thing that I would like to change is just being aware, being a little more aware, and just paying attention to your body. It knows what it's doing. It's communicating. It knows what it's trying to tell you. We just have to stop and listen. So, one small thing that you could try this week to support your body would be to rest. Start there. Start with one thing, and that one thing is rest. Take a 15-minute break just to be by yourself. If you want to have a nap, take a nap. If you want to, I don't know, just listen to music, nice soothing music, do that. Put a nice mask on your face, relax, do whatever feels good, right? But take 15 minutes every day and just do something that you enjoy. It doesn't matter what it is. You can paint, you can, write in a journal, you can do all those things. Nothing's a wrong thing, but it's very important in order to take that time for yourself in order to heal. Okay. So taking that time is going to be super effective for your long-term recovery. So those are some of the things that I would suggest. I hope that my story has resonated with you or someone you know and can help them to have more self-awareness and be able to start the road to recovery with a little more of, calm spirit and being able to start the process, even if it's just baby steps. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for being here. I look forward to sharing more of my stories with you and my insights, and we'll see you soon.